Hey, fans of freedom and open discussion, I'm heading over to Substack, and there's an ad-free audio and video version of The Adam Carolla Show that's going to be waiting there. In the near future, you'll even be able to watch ACS Live, unedited, as we record it, participate in the show via live chat. That'll be coming up very soon. You'll also get an ad-free version of the Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew Show. You'll also get an exclusive to my new podcast, Beat It Out, where I share unpolished ideas with my comedian buddies. The first series of episodes is going to be Jay Moore. You'll get all this and more for the low, low price of $9 a month, a pittance for all we're going to bring you. Subscribe now at adamcarolla.com/Substack, and I'll see all of you in our new speakeasy called Substack.
I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. Welcome back to the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I'm your host, Alice, and I'm joined, as always, by my battle-tested co-host, Brett.
Hello, Alice. I am battle-tested and illness. Yes, it's been rough, guys. I think this is going around for everybody. Like, we were supposed to record a few days before the 1st.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And I was like, I can't do it. And that was a week ago. Over a week ago.
And we kept rescheduling for like a day later, because you're like I gotta get better by then. And by like the third cancellation, I was like, Brett, just go sleep.
Yeah. And so it's Wednesday of this week. We usually record on like Sunday or Monday. I was like, maybe by Wednesday. We're here.
Sorry.
Jason, you're just going to have to cut out all the coughing if it happens. I took some really old medicine that I had from the last time I had COVID that expired like 6 months ago. And so I'm hoping that'll get me through.
You know how I know you feel really bad? I'm breathless hearing you try to talk. Yeah. I'm like, my lungs don't feel so good just hearing you talk. Anyway.
This is the problem. It's probably doing a podcast because people complain when we're sick.
I know.
Like, they sound sick. I always get a cold. Well, what are we supposed to do? We have to record. Like, at some point, you got to record. So you just got to push through.
Okay. Doctors listening out there, I have a real question. I've been trying to figure this out. At first, I thought maybe it was the room, but is there something about talking that creates congestion? And I ask this because when I record, so we get breaks when we record our episodes because like you talk, then I talk. So when you're talking, I take a break. So when I talk to you, I usually don't get stuffed up. But I will record my other podcast where it's just reading a script, usually at some point after we record. So I know it's the same day. I'm not sick that day. I didn't get stuffed up. But after reading a script for like 20 to 25 minutes, I sound congested. Doctors, tell me the answer to this. And it's like consistent. If I take a break and stop talking for a while, I will sound clear again. So I don't know what it is. Like, is it just me? And I've tested. I was like, is it the room? Am I allergic to something? But the thing is, when I record with you, that doesn't happen. And I think the difference is the break.
That's interesting. I mean, I felt fine all day, and then I had a long conversation. And after that, I was like, man, I'm tired. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I don't know something's going around. I don't know what it is. Like, I had the flu vaccine. Doesn't seem like it
doesn't matter,
man.
This flu A that's been going around for 3 years now is like the death flu. You know what I think it is? It's competing with COVID. Remember how bad COVID was? Like, COVID, I've never been that sick in my life. I think the flu was like, game on.
Wanted to show the real deal. Yeah. Well, anyways, that's enough complaining.
We're not complaining.
We're fine.
So happy.
By the time you hear this, we're both going to be perfectly healthy.
Perfectly healthy because January is the month of health.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That's the way it works. But Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Woo! Wellness to all. Yeah. And happy Epiphany because I waited until Epiphany to take all my Christmas decorations down. But man, Epiphany hit and I was like, bam, All my Christmas decorations came down. I vacuumed so much. I deep cleaned. It felt great. I don't know about you guys. Maybe
I haven't taken down this weekend. I tell the kids this weekend, all the Christmas decorations are coming down. So that's what we're doing.
That's okay. That's okay. It'll be a fun thing. But back to my amazing descriptor that's actually going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Battles. War. What? Who gets to declare war? What is declaring war? And what are war powers? If you want to know, listen.
Yeah, this has been a topic we've wanted to discuss for a while, and we sort of, we always wait for the news hooks to do these, and we have one now because, in case you missed it, we arrested the erstwhile president, dictator, what do we call him? Venezuela, dictator? In a military operation. Like a really cool military operation. Like, whatever you think about the legality / wisdom of it, really awesome.
That, no Americans
just came
died
off.
Is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was just, once again, a testament to our armed forces. And we got a lot of people in the military listening, and we appreciate you very much. But anyways, and so this, as always, raises a lot of questions. And so it's a good opportunity to talk about this because it's a really interesting, weird part of the law. Like, you would think this would be pretty straightforward. Alice he said, war powers. Oh, this is easy, right? And we're going to talk about what the Constitution says. But in reality and in practice, we just kind of wing it.
Yeah, let me just dispel a myth, right? I mean, my second grader is learning about the Constitution right now. He came home and was like, we did a play about like how the Declaration of Independence happened. And like the king was just like, okay. And he's like, that's not what happened. They sent war after us. War. So, like most people, I know as we said this, a lot of you in the chat are like, Congress declares war. Easy. End of legal briefs. Let's move on to questions from 5-star reviews. But it's not that easy.
It's not, but let's talk about it. So we'll start with Congress's power. So Article 1 defines Congress's power. And when it comes to war, sort of a traditional, you might think traditionally that the king is the one who declares wars and, kings are always fighting in sort of the medieval period, trying to take over each other's countries. And the king is like used to ride out with his armies and, Game of Thrones and all that stuff, right? Well, that had changed even by the Revolutionary period. But obviously, this is another one of those things that Congress was very interested in limiting the power of the new king, the president, and what he could do. So in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, Congress shall have power to declare war, to grant letters of marque and reprisal, which is legal piracy, by the way. Really cool. We should do that again. And make rules concerning captures on land and water. So there you go. Congress has the power to declare war. So obviously, hundreds of times that the United States is engaged in military activity.
Because we're in war all the time.
We're in war all the time around the world. Obviously, all of those were declared wars by Congress, but not so fast. In fact, there have been five declared wars in American history. Do you know what they are, Alice? The five declared wars.
I was going to say, now I have no confidence in my abilities because I know America's 250 years old.
Yep, 250 years old. 5
wars only? I mean,
only 5 wars.
Before you said 5, I was
wars.
counting like 50 in my head, right? Okay. One in World War II.
Those are the easy ones. Those were both declared wars. Yes.
Does the Civil War count?
No, the Civil War is not a declared war. I was going to say
because it was not too foreign. So it's not declared by Congress because it's one Congress in the split. So Civil War does not count within those 5. Okay.
You got 2. You only got 3 more to go.
I'm like really nervous because I don't know. Because we provide aid. Okay. The Iraq War.
No.
What?
Not
We're about to
war.
talk about that. We're about to talk about that. Okay, now I don't know anymore. Cold War, Space War.
No.
War powers. None of these.
No. I mean, you should at least say real wars that we're in. Here, I'll just give some to you, and you can tell me whether you think they were declared wars. Okay, so there were 2 Gulf Wars. Do you think either one of those was a declared war?
Yes, both of them.
Neither one was declared.
Neither one?
What about the 8-year Vietnam War?
Yes, of course.
No, not a declared war.
What?
What about the Korean War?
Yes, of course.
No, not a declared war.
But we deployed forces there. We were camped out there.
World War II is the last declared war. And then there were 3 wars
Before
declared in the 1800s?
American Indian War.
No. Okay.
I got nothing.
Do you think the
Spanish War.
War of 1812? Yes. The Spanish-American War was a declared
Finally,
war.
I get one. Okay, Spanish War.
What do you think about the
France.
War of 1812?
Yes, of course.
That was a declared war.
Okay.
Yes. So you got one more to go.
We got one more to go.
One more to go. It was an important war for you.
I already said World War II.
No. It's in the 1800s.
For me. What do you call that one?
Mid-1800s.
It's not the Silk Road. It's the... What's it called?
I don't know what you're going for.
I don't know what it's called. I assume it has
nothing to do with your
Chinese.
racial characteristics.
We didn't have a war against women. What is happening? Now I'm completely lost. Oh, Texas, obviously.
Yes, the Mexican-American War was a declared war. So that's your 5 wars. 1812, Mexican-American, Spanish-American, World War I, and World War II. So every other use of American force in history, in the 250 years we've been around, 200 and change since we had the Constitution, has been under some other theory, constitutional, legal, or otherwise.
Now that's where it gets interesting. The fact that this stumped me for like a solid 5 minutes should get you very interested. If Congress has the power to declare war, and we've only had 5, and we just listed at least another dozen or so that I would certainly qualify as wars, how do we get there? Okay, let's keep looking at this beautiful document called the Constitution. So Brett read from Article 1, which states the powers that Congress has. Article 2. Section 2 provides that the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. So, obviously we have 3 branches of government. Article 2 defines what the president's powers are. And it says pretty clearly here that the president's the head, the commander-in-chief. We know this. We know this from all the swearing-ins, with the grand declarations when they walk into a room, the commander-in-chief of the United States.
Hail to the chief. He's the chief and he needs
There you go. Yeah. Well, this just defined the powers of the president to command the troops. What does this have to do with wars? So this inherent power that the president has as commander-in-chief has been considered to be broad for most of the history of this country. And it makes sense because otherwise you would just be a figure with no power. And this came to a head during one of those non-declared wars that I was absolutely, yes, of course, sure was the Vietnam War, which was an 8-year armed conflict with no declaration of war, which, if you listen to the last 5 minutes, shocked me. So that not war involved bombing Cambodia and Laos in support of this war. And of course, this led to the War Powers Act.
So the War Powers Act, we're going to talk about the War Powers Act, which is interesting. And basically every president since it was passed thinks it's unconstitutional, but operates underneath it anyways. So basically for the first, 200 years or so of the country, you had this notion of Congress declares war, but the president can sort of use the military in some ways. And oftentimes he would do this, even if it wasn't a declared war, with some sort of acquiescence from Congress. Go all the way back to like the Barbary pirates, right? So like the shores of Tripoli from the Marines song, like the Barbary pirates are raiding American commerce, and at some point Thomas Jefferson decides he's going to put it down, and he goes over and fights a war with the Barbary pirates. Now that was not a declared war, and Jefferson thought he could do it just sort of within his own sort of authority to use the powers of the military to protect trade and everything else. But Congress did sort of sign off on it. They passed like a resolution and said, we support the use of force over there against the Barbary pirates. And this was the sort of thing that would happen. And you have to understand that the real issue here is standing armies. So at the time of the Constitution, standing armies just weren't really a thing. So the general idea was there's only going to be a national army in a time of war. So basically a war will be declared. Congress will set aside some money. We'll raise a big army and we'll go fight our war. right? That's how it's going to be. And otherwise, we'll have these militias in all the states, and they'll sort of keep things going in the states, and the president can always call up the militia if he needs to in an emergency, and we won't really have an army unless we really need one. And so there's no real need to put these big limitations on the commander-in-chief powers because he doesn't really have an army, right? And it really wasn't until the Civil War where you have this massive army raised, the Grand Army of the Republic, to put down the rebellion, whatever, secession, whatever you want to call it, of the southern states. And then after that, it contracted a lot, but it never really went away. And then it sort of went out west, and you had, as Alice mentioned earlier, the Indian Wars and the Buffalo Soldiers and like all that stuff. Then you had World War I, and once again, you get this big army, but it kind of goes away after World War I. But then after World War II, because of the rise of the Soviets and all this other issue, at this point, you have this just military that is massive. And you may recall from Eisenhower, the whole military industrial complex and that problem. Well, at that point, you have this massive standing army and it's not going away, right? And so you don't have the same issue you would have had before where, well, we don't really have to worry about what the president does because he doesn't have an army to do it with. No, now he has a military that's just sitting around waiting. And then you have Korea, you have Vietnam. These things sort of happen with the acquiescence of Congress, but there's no real limitations on what the president can do. You have Kennedy kind of gets us involved in Vietnam, and then LBJ takes it to the next level. And then Nixon, in an effort to win the war, expands it even more. He's, like Al said, he's bombing Laos, he's bombing Cambodia, and risking sort of a wider war. And then, obviously, Watergate. And so at this point, there's some real skepticism about how big this power should be for the president. And so the War Powers Act is passed. And so basically, the War Powers Act sets out these limitations on how the president can use force without congressional authority. And so it recognizes the president's going to do this, but it tries to put some limitations on it. It requires consultation, quote, in every possible instance before an attack, although presidents usually come up with reasons why this is not one of those possible instances. We can't tell you. In the Maduro thing, it was basically, you'll leak it, so we're not going to tell you until afterwards. And certainly within 48 hours. So if you can't do the pre-thing, within 48 hours, the president's supposed to make a report to Congress and say, hey, this was the force. This is the reason we used it. It's supposed to be some sort of imminent national security issue or something along those lines, but it's very broad and it's not really that well defined. But nevertheless, the president's supposed to come up with one of those reasons, and he only has 60 days. So if the president decides to use force, he can't pull a Vietnam. He can't get us involved in a country fighting a war for 8 years. He's got 60 days to wrap it up. So whatever it is, you know, the Serbs are invading Kosovo and we need to stop that, or we got this problem with Gaddafi over in Libya and we want to support the revolution there, or we got some issue in Syria and we need to do something there. Whatever the reason is for the deployment of these forces, you got 60 days to figure it out, or you need to ask for more. You need to go to Congress and say, hey, we need authorization to use military force for more than this. And after 60 days, you got 30 days to wrap up the withdrawal. So practically speaking, it's really a 90-day window the president has to use the military for whatever purpose he decides is critical to the national security.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. Now get a savory sausage McMuffin with egg, plus hash browns and a small coffee for just $5.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Although this is supposed to limit kind of the president's force, I kind of feel like now that we've put a name on it and given them this like 90-day period, it's almost like a blessing to say, well, go for it. Like,
which is exactly what it
exactly what happened. Because now this makes a lot more sense, right? If you asked me at the beginning of this episode how many wars there were, I'd say hundreds. And in fact, the War Powers Act has been used more than 130 times since it was passed. And some of you may be thinking, well, those 130 wars didn't end in 90 days, and Congress certainly didn't declare war or grant more time in 131 of them. So what happened? So presidents, the ones using them, which has been a lot of presidents who've invoked the war powers, have stuck to this time requirement sometimes, really with varying consistency, as can be imagined. President Clinton famously ignored the 60-day limit during his campaign in none other than Kosovo. And this actually led to a lawsuit called Campbell versus Clinton. But the DC District Court, so the trial level court, found that the question was non-justiciable as a political question, so it didn't go anywhere. And non-justiciability just says, like, I don't know, we can't weigh in. This is like the three branches of government thing. We can't weigh in on this question. So there was not actually a court finding as to whether he can violate it.
One wonders.
Is it really non-justiciable?
Well, yeah. I mean, it certainly is. Because, I mean, I guess it was an open question before they said it wasn't. But, I mean, can you imagine? It's difficult to imagine a circumstance in which a court told the president, you can't use your war power in what you think is defense of the national security. Like, it's hard to even imagine that happening. Like, it's just, it could happen, but, and having like litigation. I mean, can you imagine like Carter's trying to, because another one was Carter when he attempted to rescue the hostages in Iran. Failed miserably, a bunch of people died. Real disaster. But nevertheless, I mean, you know, you got the go or no go. He's got to decide, are we going in or not? And it's like, well, Mr. President, we have an injunction from the district court. We've appealed it to the appeals court, but we can't go until they say we can go. And he's like, okay. I mean, it's just hard to even imagine that happening. But this is a real issue. And this speaks to something we talk about a lot, which is at the very limits of power, there's no real sort of legal limitation, right? Like, we're talking about this, the War Powers Act, as if it's a real thing that limits the president's power. And, you know, presidents sort of abide by it. But if it's not justiciable, then what is it? You know, it's like the Pirates Code, right? It's like a guideline. It's a suggestion, right? Because really, the only way you could enforce it would be, I guess, to impeach the president. Like, you could say the president violated the War Powers Act, and so we're going to impeach the president. But, I mean, that's basically impossible, right? Like, to actually remove a president from power would take so much. So this is a pretty interesting thing that happened when the court said, yeah, it's a law, but we can't enforce it.
No, you're absolutely right about that. I was being facetious when I said, is it really non-justiciable? Can you imagine, though, like, what would happen if that were the case? So this War Powers Act, as we said, gives this 90-day runway, but it's been invoked so many times. So some examples of this use of force, we're not going to list all 130 of them. We actually said a lot of them at the beginning of this when I was wrong about all of them being declared wars, is Libya in 2011. So the Obama administration ignored the 60-day limit, arguing that because it was technically a NATO operation, that the War Powers Act did not apply.
I mean,
isn't
clever.
Everything? It is clever. I was going to say, it's pretty clever.
But it's hard to imagine a situation where you're like, it's okay, we don't have to follow the law because we just put all of our soldiers under the command of
NATO.
Of another entity, and Congress is like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Vietnam would have been perfectly fine if it was a NATO operation. It was only a problem because it was an American operation. Like, but nevertheless, I mean, that was the argument they made.
So by the way, when I used to work for DOJ, these kinds of cases would have come to my specific office, but I did not work for the government yet. I was like 2 years away from joining. So this question was not before me. So I'm not talking about something that I've ever had to work on. Next one that we'll talk about, Iran in 2020. The first Trump administration bombed Iran, killing Soleimani. And that was an invocation of the War Powers Act. Iran 2025, the second Trump administration bombed Iran again, this time destroying their nuclear facilities, which happened just months ago.
So this is the War Powers Act. So a subsidiary that sort of swallowed the whole on this is the authorization for the use of military force. You may have heard this referred to as the AUMF. So essentially, after September 11th, everybody was like, the president needs to have basically any power he needs to deal with this, to address this, to go after whoever did this. And that was the authorization for the use of military force. And like so often happens, I mean, a tragedy like that is going to generate some bad laws. I mean, the Patriot Act has some good parts to it, but it also has some bad parts to it, right? Like, there were a lot of things that came out of 9/11 that weren't well thought out because they were in response to this emergency. And frankly, we just as humans tend to not maybe make the best decisions in the wake of a huge emergency. And the AUMF is so broad, and it allows the president to use military force against anyone who was responsible for or aided in the September 11th attacks. Now, you might think, well, that's broad, but it's also limited, right? Because it's only the people who sort of helped out. Well, the problem is the language was very broad and also spoke of preventing future attacks. And this has enabled presidents to sort of claim authority to ignore the War Powers Act by simply declaring who constitutes a terrorist threat and saying that terrorist threat needs to be dealt with through the use of military force. So, for instance, is it a coincidence that the cartels and the cartels operating out of Venezuela have been declared narco-terrorist? No, it is not a coincidence, because by declaring them terrorists, the president has this vast authority to address that problem basically without limit. So President Trump has been blowing up these boats that are carrying drugs, and no one can do anything about it, right? I mean, like, people have complained about it. People have said, well, I don't like that, or that seems like a bad idea, but there's nothing anyone can do to stop it, right? Number one, because as Alice pointed out, this is all non-justiciable. But number two, because it's under this vast authority, it feels like the president can do anything. It has been called the Endless Wars Act. And in fact, there was a piece of legislation called the Stop Endless Wars Act, which was meant to repeal the AUMF and had such supporters as the current sitting vice president, who was one of the sponsors of that act. Obviously, he has different views on the AUMF now that he's vice president. But nevertheless, I mean, this is something that's been very controversial on both sides of the aisle. It really came to a head, and the reason you saw sort of bipartisan support there was during the Biden administration using the AUMF in Libya. And there was just this feeling of like, it's been 24 years since, it'll be 25 this year, since September 11th. And does like the Assad regime, like how much do they have to do with 9/11? Like even ISIS, ISIS is obviously an evil organization, it needs to be destroyed. But they didn't have anything to do with September 11th. Didn't even exist then, right? So there's this feeling of, hey, we need to rein this back in. Not saying that the president couldn't do these things, but he needs to go to Congress first. He needs to get some sort of authorization. But until you sort of have that change between, as Alice said, the War Powers Act was supposed to limit. It's funny because it was supposed to limit the power of the president, but it was a power that the president had just sort of claimed for himself, right? Like vague sort of argument for why it's sort of his inherent constitutional power. But once you passed a law, then, well, now he has 90 days, right? Like it's whenever you do something, whenever you put a limit on it, it just means, well, they're going to use that now.
Before it may have been like, can we do this? Maybe it's a week or a day, but now you're like, oh, the room has 90 days. Let's do it. Yeah. That's what I mean by it's like an authorization saying, well, now that we've named it, all right, let's do it.
It's kind of like we talk about how Rule 404B is not a limitation. It's a grant, an authorization,
right? Yeah.
It's a grant because you basically say, oh, look, it's fine. Maybe under Rule 403, this wouldn't have been relevant, but we got Rule 404 that says it's relevant for this very reason. So it's a similar type thing.
So there is a psychological experiment that's done with kids, and this is how powers and how authority works, right? So they like see kids playing on an open field. Let's like there's a playground on it, but there's no delineation of where the end of that playground is. So when they do that, they play very close to the playground. So imagine like a soccer field and there's just one little playscape in the middle. When that happens and it just looks like field and it's all open, the kids stay right on the playground. But if you build a fence around it, no matter where you build the fence, they play out to the fence. So if you build the fence actually an acre out, they think, well, this is the playground then. All of a sudden, the kids spread out and play on that entire acre. Or if you made it 2 acres, they make play on the 2 acres. You make it smaller, they play on it. So it's a really interesting, that's how this War Powers Act and the endless, the AUMF work as well. They're essentially giving what appear to be fences, but really it's opening up, I think, giving you a runway and letting you know this is what we're going to allow before you start getting into trouble.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. And I think it's a lesson sort of for legislators who are trying to figure this stuff out. Like when you pass a law like this, it's going to be used, and it has been used. And some might say that the power of the president to use the military however he sees fit has really expanded because of the War Powers Act. And, it's one of those things like whenever something like this happens, like the Maduro thing or the thing in Libya with Biden, it doesn't matter, right? Just like Vance was calling for repeal of the AUMF back when it was his political opposition, now it's the same people who were fine with that are like, oh, this is an illegal use. And they just throw these words around like, oh, this is illegal or this is unconstitutional. And it's like, okay, give me something, like I know you're using those buzzwords because you don't want to really engage and explain why this is a bad idea practically, politically, for policy reasons, for the good of the country. Like you'd rather just say this is illegal, but like, why is it illegal? Under the current laws, what is illegal about it? Like maybe it should be illegal. Maybe it should be unconstitutional, but it's really not. And the thing about this particular action is a lot of this doesn't even matter because this is really a criminal enforcement action. Because we've been talking about Maduro as if he's actually the president of Venezuela, but he's not. He's a usurper. He lost the last election, just been recognized by basically all of the civilized nations. The Chinese and the Russians are all about Venezuela because they want the natural resources just like we do. And the way to get to it from their perspective is to buddy up to Maduro. In fact, the Chinese were there that night. They had literally just sent a delegation over to Maduro.
It was not by accident.
I know. Like, can you imagine?
Clearly not by accident. It was to send a clear message.
They're like hanging out in the guest room and all of a sudden like the world blows up. That had to be wild. But anyway, so there is a precedent for this because one of the other military actions we engaged in, Panama. And if you guys remember the war in Panama in the first Bush administration, when we had Manuel Noriega. You're probably too young for this. Do you remember the invasion of Panama?
I watched a movie about it.
Okay, there you go.
But I don't remember it in real time. What year? Let's see. What year was it?
It was like 1990, I think.
I was 4 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Manuel Noriega, much like Maduro, sort of installed himself as the leader of Panama. He was a military dictator, but he was also a smuggler of drugs, and all sorts of weird stuff happened in Panama. At some point, they declared war on the United States, which is never a good idea. Like, all sorts of stuff. Well, at some point, basically, we were like, hey, you got the Panama Canal. Like, this would be one thing if you were like Bolivia, but you're Panama, you got the Panama Canal. So invasion happened, sort of similar to this. Go in, try and arrest him. He actually flees to like a church or the Vatican's, the Holy See or something. And for like a week, they play like Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It, and other like music at full blast, just aiming it at the church. And eventually he's like, I can't take it anymore. And he surrenders. And he is taken back to the United States, stands trial, much like Maduro will. He makes a lot of the same claims that Maduro will make. I'm the head of a nation, so therefore I have diplomatic immunity. You know, I'm a sovereign, et cetera, et cetera. All those fail because no one recognizes him as the legitimate ruler of Panama. And he's eventually convicted. And I think eventually was released and went back to Panama when he was like old and sickly and died. I think he actually had to go to France for a little while to serve some time. A lot of different people charged him with things. Maduro's going to be the same thing back. It's been a while. Maybe either the first Trump administration or maybe even the end of the Obama administration, they put a bounty on him. $15 million. The Biden administration raised it to 25. Trump administration doubled it to 50. Now they're not going to have to pay that because they're not going to have to worry about that anymore. So the fact that it's like this criminal enforcement action really takes even a lot of this away.
This is really not a war powers.
Yeah,
this is just enforcement of criminal laws and like forced extradition.
He just happens to be he just
happens
in
to be a
Venezuela.
head of a country, but really he's just any other guy who's indicted under this criminal enforcement action.
Right. And so if we have an extradition treaty with Venezuela, that might be the only thing that was violated because we did not go through the extradition process. We just went in and got him.
That is not the way extradition works.
Which brings us, I mean, we didn't write anything about this, but it just popped in my head. International law. What does international law have to say about all this? And, the flippant answer
and the conflict of laws
is that international law doesn't exist, which is not true. People say that all the time. It's not true, though practically speaking, it is. I mean,
because there's no international Congress that passes anything with like a
or enforces
international court, right? So technically,
so,
that's what people. Well, no, that is not what people mean when they say there's no international law. But technically, that is the case.
Well, we got all these treaties. I mean, treaties are international law, compacts, agreements, conventions. So like the Convention Against the Use of Chemical Weapons, for instance, is like part of international law. But think about international law. Imagine if you lived in the United States and you're under American law. And part of that is like, you can't rob a bank. And you walked into the bank and you said, you know what? I'm withdrawing from that. I can now rob this bank and I'm going to rob the bank. Well, guess what? No one would care, right? Like you would be arrested and you would be prosecuted. That's not how international law works. Like you just withdraw from it. Like take like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. You want a nuclear weapon, you just withdraw from the treaty and do it. And that has happened on several occasions. And so like the thing about international law is it really is real if you're Serbia, if you're like Libya, then international law means something. If you're Russia, or if you're China, or England, or the United States, or France, or Germany, it doesn't mean much. I mean, there's a reason that those countries, I don't know if Germany does, but have a veto in the UN. I mean, think about this. Every country in the world can vote not to do something, and the United States can be like, no, we're going to do it. Veto. And it just goes away because international law is really a power thing. It's just a different animal. It's like a moral thing. Like you sort of want to look good to the rest of the world. So like the Russians don't care. Like the Russians will invade Ukraine. That's a clear violation of international law, but they just do it because they don't care what anybody thinks about them. The Chinese are going to support them. Like, no big deal, right? And the Chinese do whatever they want to do. I mean, the Chinese have been violating every fishing treaty for the last 30 years. These Chinese fleets, I know I'm way off. Like,
this is fascinating.
The Chinese fishing fleets, are you familiar with this?
Yes.
You know who nailed this like 30 years ago? YouTube.
Yes.
YouTube. They got that song.
I think I watched it.
About the Chinese fleets like clearing the seas out. And it's true. And so basically they fished all their waters to death. And so what they do now is they send the fleets all the way to South America and they get right to on the border of international waters and they turn off their transponders. So you can watch it happen. You can watch like these thousands of ships. They all go down to South America. And then as soon as they get there, they disappear. Because what are they doing? They're then going into Peru and Chile and like all these other places, waters, fishing it. And then going back. And then as soon as they leave, oh, boom, their transponder's back on. It's required by international law. And they go back to China with their illegally caught stuff. And that's just like, I mean, a problem, right? But there's nothing you can do about it. It just is what it is when these
there is no international
big powers
police that gets them and brings them to court. And then like what would happen? So it really is a moral code. Rather than like the laws in the sense of if you rob a bank here, we're going to go arrest you and bring you to justice. It doesn't work in the same way.
You know, the thing that the United States has been doing for a long time, we don't do the fishing fleet thing so much, but we are very much about, we will go anywhere and kill anyone in defense of American interest. We just view that as our right. And so an example of that, probably the most obvious and controversial example of that, is Anwar al-Awlaki, who was an American citizen who was a member of Al-Qaeda. We found him in Sudan. He was with a bunch of other people, and we blew him up. We droned him, right? Killed him, which was a good thing because he was a really bad person. Killed a bunch of Sudanese people too. And we were just like collateral damage, right? I mean, that was the view. This was under, I think, 2011 under the Obama administration. And it was controversial, like from a legal perspective, because number one, you're bombing a foreign country. Number two, you're killing an American citizen. Obviously, you're doing this without trial or due process or anything else. But the position of the Obama administration was like, look, this guy is dangerous. He's a terrorist under the AUMF. We have the power to use force when we need to. So that's what we're going to do. And these are sort of the real world complications that make this so difficult. Like, it's very easy to sit on the sidelines and be like, well, that's bad. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't violate another country.
But then there's going to be like an exception that we want it for, right? That's why these laws were made in the first place.
And this actually played a role when tying everything together when we did our presidential immunity thing.
That's right.
So if you go back and listen to that episode, you can learn how sort of the law played in on that decision. That's
awesome.
All I got.
I love these history lessons. Thank you. Because I didn't know we didn't have 130 plus wars. Didn't know
Only
we had 5 wars. Didn't know we had 5 wars.
See, we barely ever fought wars. We're such a peaceful people.
What I didn't fully appreciate was the intended limitation on what the president was doing because of Article 2 that caused that whole fence effect. Then it was off to I didn't quite appreciate that timeline of things.
It really was off to the races.
Yeah, then it was off to the races.
Because, I mean, just imagine. Think about what they're trying to limit, like the Cambodian Laos thing.
I know.
But under this, he can absolutely do that.
Absolutely.
We need to bomb Laos for 90 days.
I was going to say you have to do it quickly. You could do a lot of damage.
Well, and the other problem is, let's say you bomb it for 90 days and stop. Take a week off.
Then can you start up again? Because all of a sudden now they're angry for a different reason than what we started for. Well, this is fascinating. I hope you guys learned something. It's obviously very timely for the things that we're seeing, but obviously to bring it all full circle in terms of like us being cold water prosecutors, when you see the clickbait where it's like, this is all illegal. No, but whether it's good policy or not is another question.
And see, I am convinced that politicians, they love using the buzzwords like illegal, unconstitutional, because it means they don't have to grapple with whether or not it's good policy. Like, they don't have to grapple because it's so hard, right? Like, Maduro's an enemy. He's been an enemy of presidents of both parties. You know, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, you can avoid all that discussion just by saying, oh, this is illegal. The president did this illegally. He should have talked to Congress. He should have passed something, should have got authorization, et cetera, et cetera. It just gives you the get out of jail free card. And most journalists aren't smart enough to work around that and like really pin politicians down and make them say, oh, this is bad policy for all these reasons.
Yeah, but now you're a little more educated, so you can ask those good questions because they are good questions, and it is not black and white, and they're going to be very fact specific, and we have to talk about like the commander in chief. Do we want them to have these powers? The answer is going to be yes in some circumstances, but where do you draw that line? So,
and how do you draw it?
How do you draw that line? How do you enforce it when it's not just non-justiciable? I have never been able to say that word, non-justiciable. There we go. Well. That was great. Are you still alive? Are you able to answer questions? Or should we just call it a day?
I think basically, like the adrenaline of recording.
I was going to say, you got better as it went.
I did, yeah. But as soon as I stop, I'm probably going to be on the ground coughing.
Don't
so
stop.
let's answer some questions.
Let's answer some questions because it's a new year and people had to wait a whole week for us to record.
There you go. Okay. So we got a couple today, which I think are worth answering because they're timely. I don't know if you saw this, but Alan Jackson withdrew in the Rayner case. He's no longer going to be the attorney. And so people asked a couple questions about that. The first one was, we all know why he withdrew, right? And everybody knows why he withdrew, right? Because at some point it became obvious he doesn't have the money to pay him. I mean, that's the reason. Like, initially it was like maybe he'll have access to his murdered parents' funds. Maybe he has his own funds, but at the end of the day, he's not going to have those resources. And the way we know that is because after Alan Jackson withdrew, he got a public defender, which, as we discussed recently, you can only get a public defender if you're unable to pay for a paid attorney. So the question that somebody asked, number one, is he able to do that? Can he withdraw based on money? And the answer is yes. He absolutely can. He is a retained attorney, and he is retained under certain understandings that he's going to be paid his rate, that there's going to be resources for the defense. And if that's not true, it's like any other contract. He absolutely can withdraw on that basis.
So here's an example. Like every contract that I have with clients has a provision that's essentially like if you're overdue, if you stop paying, basically, after a certain amount of days, I have the right to terminate you, right? And they have the right to terminate me if I'm just a bad attorney as well, because it's just contract law. Now, it's different when you have a public defender because of the right to have counsel. But when you're retained, it's just a contract. When you stop paying the bills, they can't be forced to execute their labor.
Right, exactly. So it's really not that big a deal. People ask, like, what are some reasons you would be able to withdraw? Conflicts might be one. Having sort of a strategy that's at odds with your client. If your client comes in and says, hey, I did it. What I really want to do is I want to take the stand. I'm going to lie about it because I'm a really good liar. And I'm pretty sure I can convince the jury. Like, you as an attorney, you can say you can't do that because that'll be perjury. But if your client says, well, I'm going to do it, then you can withdraw on that basis. So that would sort of be a reason. And look, I mean, Alan Jackson's a scumbag. We all know that. But to me, he took this case because it was high profile and he was going to make a lot of money. I mean, that's what lawyers do. It's hard for me to really hold that against him. Then it turned out he wasn't going to make a lot of money. And he's into money. That's what he wants. And
it also is fair. You have to pay your bills, right? Like, I mean, we've heard a lot about this in the the Delphi case.
I don't think he was going to have any problem paying his bills. He probably could have taken this one on. And look, there are some attorneys. There's a lot of defense attorneys who, let's say, and to some extent, at some point, this kind of becomes required. But let's say your client gives you a $10,000 retainer and, you're halfway through trial and that runs out. Most lawyers are not going to seek to withdraw in that circumstance. They're going to finish the case. And a lot of lawyers lose money on cases that end up going long for that very reason. And a lot of judges wouldn't let you withdraw if you're all that way in and be like, look, you should have charged more. You should have figured this out in the front, right? And this is Alan Jackson being smart because he's withdrawing now. Because if he gets too deep into the case and the money runs out, then he's stuck in it, right? So, and look, this is going to be an insanity case. That's what it's going to be. That is the only defense he has, is that he was insane at the time because of schizophrenia and because of medication and everything else. That's going to be the claim. I am sure his attorneys will be able to make that argument effectively, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Great question. Well, we don't want to keep Brett from the football game.
Basketball.
Basketball. It's funny because my kids were at the basketball game earlier this week.
Are they really?
So, well, last week, yeah.
Oh, the Kentucky game?
No, the Yale game.
Oh, yeah.
Did I tell you? It was really cute, actually, because we were...
Did they deck out in Yale stuff?
No. It was really cute because, first of all, they stay the same age. We just keep getting older, these kids, right? And so we actually walked into the Yale team, literally walked into them. They're so tall, right? And my kids were like, whoa. They audibly said, whoa, because these kids were so tall. But the kids, and I call them kids because I could be their mother. That's how old I am. Saw Bryant-Denny Stadium, and they were their faces dropped. They were so excited. And I was like, oh, this is so cute. We're going to watch you guys. And you are so in awe of
seeing
something that you've seen on TV for so long. Anyways,
that is cool.
It was just a heartwarming scene. And then my kids were in awe that they were so tall. They had no idea.
And then we crushed them.
And then Bama crushed them because it's Yale.
Hey, Yale, you know.
Oh,
Yale's
my
not bad.
goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Tonight we're playing Vanderbilt, who's pretty good.
They are.
I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. I'm going to check the score real quick.
And I want you to feel better. So,
Yeah, we're
with
losing,
that,
so.
thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this history law episode. If you have any questions, let us know. If you disagree, I don't know what to tell you. That's what the law is. You can disagree on the policy, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Do you have any other thoughts, Brett, before we sign
Just
off?
this. I'm told that Vanderbilt has a player named Chandler Bing.
No. Do you think his parents, let's see, how long ago
Had
was
to
it?
have.
He got named Chandler Bing.
He was absolutely named Chandler Bing. On
Too
purpose.
bad. The only thing better is if that Chandler Bing were a girl. Chandler Bing is a girl. Chandler Bing is a girl. It's a reference in case you don't watch Friends.
Great show.
It's a great show. I bet on the field he goes by on the field. I'm fitting in real well here. I bet on the court he goes by Chandler Bond. And if he doesn't, then it's a missed opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, guys, go watch the game. This has been very fun. If you leave a 5-star review, you get to ask any questions. We'll answer them. We love it. And if you're not watching us record live or you want these episodes early and ad-free, join our Patreon. But otherwise, we'll see you on our feed. Until next time, I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. Welcome back to the... Forgot how to do it. Welcome back to the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I'm your host, Alice, and I'm joined, as always, by my battle... Okay, no, we're good. I just forgot the pillows.
Oh. No, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and go live.
Okay,
so
go for it.
people can see us.
Okay. How's that? Does it sound okay?
Sounds amazing.
I can hear, because I played around with it, like once without it, once with it. This seems to do the job.
Pluto TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
This is the mindset. Free. This is the mantra. Free. This is the mindset.
With movies like Joe Dirt, Pixels, and 50 First Dates. This is awesome. And TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts. Pluto TV is always free. Huzzah! Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
You're welcome.